this lesson is future proofing. So the reality is a final order with these types of people is very rarely a final order. So we need to be thinking about how can we get as much into the current order, the current final order, as is possible to cover you for as long as possible, because research shows that children shouldn't be in family court. It's detrimental to them and it's stressful for you. It costs money that could be way better spent. So trying to get as future-proofed final order as possible is what we're going to look at. So you need to get to the point where you can include as much as possible to cover as many years of decisions as possible. So as we've worked through evidence and we're going to look at risk, you'll be able to present evidence that shows why it's so important that there is so much in a court order, a very comprehensive court order. And what I want you to be thinking about is school transition. So try and get them at least to the next school transition age for one or ideally all of the children. Medical procedures, what would be the ideal way that they were managed? Staff training days, what if school suddenly has a staff training day? Who gets care? Holidays, including Father's Day, Mother's Days, obviously Christmas, Easter, any special ones that are for your faith, include them. Haircuts and ear piercings, if you need those including, these are things that sometimes come up. Dentists, opticians, GP, who's responsible for taking them. Other occasions when you will go together, how is information going to be shared? Emergency childcare provision, so child's sick, you've got work, they've got work, how is that going to work? What happens? So I've included a parallel parenting plan for you that covers most eventualities, but obviously not all, and you need to be thinking about for your family. So in the workbook, I want you to be starting to make notes of arguments that you have already had, because they will be predictors of future arguments that you can see coming, and then anything else that you think might cause you to have different opinions. Most things, if they're obstinate and they have to have their own way, are going to cause them to not, or them to want to have their own way. So be thinking about as many things as possible. But I would look at least 5 years into the future. All the things that might come up. Now, this might seem a lot, but believe me, it will save you a lot of time and energy in the long run if 6 months after getting out of court and getting what you think is a final order, you can't agree on who's going to buy the shoes. So it is really important that you get it right from the start. So I want you to also think about what happens if you can't agree on something and they're not willing to back down. Happens a lot. You need to learn how to negotiate and be assertive, because they are going to make constant attempts to get round not only the order but your boundaries as well. Always limit your conversation and keep your responses brief, informative, friendly and firm. We're going to look at more on that in the bonus communication module. The reason that they try to get around your boundaries and try to just irritate you in general is they want your emotional response. They want to keep you engaged. Don't give them that. Cut them off. Only respond to what is absolutely necessary. You do not have to respond to taunts, threats, allegation or rudeness. Don't play that game. My advice is to get someone you trust who can be objective and not let their emotions get in the way, to read through any of the communication that comes through and take out all the things that you don't need to read, so that you are only dealing with the very important bits that you've got to, none of the emotional claptrap that goes with it. Next, use the court order. They will attempt to get around it. They will interpret it in a different way. So simply cut and paste sections of the order for any questions that they have or any attempts that they make to make changes. If they still persist with the behaviour and breach the order, I recommend just simply communicating, just to clarify, you're choosing to breach the order dated, whatever the date was, and signed by whoever the judge was. The reason you want to be including the judge's name is hand it back to the judge. Should be able to show when you do eventually have to go back to court, which you invariably will, that your order did not stop them. And that by naming them in these messages, whether it be an email or a text, you are putting it back in their court. It also pokes at their ego a little bit. And it goes straight in the evidence pile. You do not need to get upset and argumentative because they're going to thrive on that. Just call out the behaviour using the court order and don't label it. So if you would normally say, as per usual, you're trying to control the situation by not following the court order, what they're receiving is, I am so annoyed and frustrated with you. And they win. So no emotions, not even in the subtext. Just like a bully, they will get bored. Final one is, do not be tempted to counter breach. Just because they're being disrespectful of the order, do not get lured into tit-for-tat behaviour. It will only go against you and you'll be labelled as being an equal part of the problem. Stick to the order and just use their behaviour to evidence a pattern, as we've talked about. And this will strengthen your case in the long run. It's about long-term management of this rather than short-term. So this is all about you managing yourself, using what they give you and knowing we're going to win in the long run.